There are things in the dark that hurt you. There are things that kill you. And then there is SCP-682. To call it a monster feels inadequate. A monster implies biology. It implies a creature that eats, sleeps, and eventually dies. This entity does none of those things in a way that we understand. It is a universal constant of hatred. It is a creature that has been shot, stabbed, drowned, burned, frozen, crystallized, erased from reality, and thrown into the heart of the sun. And it is still angry. The SCP Foundation contains thousands of anomalies. For almost all of them, the goal is secure, contain, protect. They lock them away to keep them safe, or to keep us safe from them. But for SCP-682, the order is different. It is one of the few entities in Foundation history with a standing termination order. They don't want to study it. They don't want to protect it. They want it gone. Tonight, we are opening the termination log. We are going to walk through the most ambitious, desperate, and terrifying attempts humanity has made to kill the hard-to-destroy reptile. We will look at the physics-bending weapons, the battles with other legendary SCPs, and the moments where the Foundation got desperate enough to ask God himself to intervene. This is the story of the one thing that hates you more than you can possibly imagine. To understand why the Foundation is so desperate, you have to look at the creature itself. SCP-682 is a large, vaguely reptile-like creature of unknown origin. It is currently held at a classified site, submerged in a 5 by 5 meter chamber filled with hydrochloric acid. This isn't to kill it. It is just to keep it incapacitated. The acid constantly dissolves its flesh, keeping it in a state of perpetual regeneration, so it can't build up the strength to breach containment. Biologically, it is a nightmare. It gains energy from anything it ingests, organic or inorganic. It has filtering gills inside its nostrils that allow it to process liquid solutions, enabling it to constantly regenerate from the very acid it is contained in. The Foundation has seen this thing moving and speaking with 87% of its body rotted away. But the physical threat isn't the worst part. It is the intelligence. It engages in complex communication. It is capable of strategy. And it harbours a profound, articulate hatred for all life. This isn't animal aggression. It is a philosophical stance. In one of the few recorded interviews, designated Addendum 682-B, a researcher asked the creature why it had slaughtered a group of innocent farmers during a breach. The creature didn't roar. It didn't rage. It simply struggled against the acid destroying its throat to speak. When the D-Class personnel moved the microphone closer, noting that the creature's throat was messed up, 682 struck. It assaulted the man's body, and as the chaos erupted, it delivered a single, chilling justification. It said they were disgusting. That is the mind we are dealing with. A creature that views existence itself as an infection. And so, the O5 Council authorized the testing. If it can't be contained safely, it must be destroyed. The first attempts were scientific. The Foundation tried to use biology against biology. They started with SCP-409, a contagious crystal. Any living matter capable of photosynthesis or digestion that touches this crystal begins to crystallize rapidly. It usually turns the victim into quartz completely, which then shatters. They exposed 682. The crystal began to spread. The creature tore at its own flesh, causing massive trauma, trying to rip the infection out. It demanded to know what it had been exposed to. For a moment, it looked like it might work. The crystallization reached 62% of its body. 682 went into seizures due to the extreme pain. And then it stopped. The crystallized parts of its body exploded, shattering the stone, but the remaining flesh did not turn. SCP-682 recovered. It regenerated its lost limbs and organs, and crucially, it was now immune to SCP-409. It had learned. This set a terrifying precedent. Whatever you hit 682 with, if it doesn't kill it instantly, 682 will adapt. They tried SCP-151, a phenomenon that fills the lungs with seawater if you look at the image. 682 looked. Its chest began to heave. Seawater poured from its mouth and nose. Then the creature's body adapted in real time. A horizontal tear formed on its underside. Its lungs were forcefully ejected out of its own body. It ripped out the affected organs, let the water drain, and then regenerated new lungs that were immune to the effect. They tried SCP-3930, a void in reality where nothing exists. They lured 682 into it. It ceased to exist. But 15 hours later, it reappeared in its containment chamber. Even non-existence couldn't hold it. When the laws of biology failed, the Foundation turned to its other prisoners. They started the cross-test program, pitting Keter against Keter. They brought in SCP-173, the sculpture. This is the entity that moves only when you aren't looking, snapping necks at high speed. They sealed the two in a room. 682 didn't attack. It immediately backed into a corner and stared at the statue. It knew. It kept its eyes fixed on 173 for 6 hours without blinking. The Foundation wasn't satisfied. They sent in snipers to shoot out 682's eyes, forcing a break in line of sight. 173 attacked instantly, doing massive damage to 682's head and neck. But 682 adapted. It regenerated its eyes, but this time it grew dozens of them. Eyes sprouted all over its body, covered in thick, clear armored caps. It created a 360-degree vision field just to keep the statue frozen. The test was a stalemate. Then they tried SCP-096, the Shy Guy. This entity enters an unstoppable rage state if you view its face, hunting down the viewer no matter where they are. They put the Shy Guy's containment tank in the cell. The screaming started. It lasted for 27 hours. When the noise finally stopped, the video feed showed SCP-096 huddled in the corner, severely wounded and upset. 682 had been torn apart, with 85% of its mass gone, but it was still alive. In future attempts, when they tried to show 682's face to the Shy Guy again, SCP-096 turned away. It clawed at its own face and screamed, refusing to look at the lizard. 682 had traumatized the unstoppable hunter. They even tried SCP-017, the Shadow Person. This entity consumes anything that casts a shadow. They manipulated the light so 682 cast a shadow on the entity. SCP-017 enveloped the lizard, but 682 didn't disappear. Its shadow remained. And then the shadow stood up. 682's shadow opened its mouth and emitted a scream, an anomalous wave that caused every human being within a 1 kilometer radius to vanish instantly. Only their shadows remained, flickering on the walls. 682 was expelled from the darkness, smaller but alive. It had adapted to the shadow dimension and weaponized it against the researchers. If monsters couldn't do it, maybe the laws of the universe could. The Foundation utilized SCP-536, a chamber where you can alter the fundamental constants of physics. They put 682 inside. They turned the dials. They lowered the speed of light. They decreased the strong nuclear force that holds atoms together. 682's body began to disintegrate. It turned into a cloud of ions. At one point, it was reduced to 1% of its normal size. a speck of quantum matter held together by unknown effects. It should have ceased to exist. But when the researchers looked closer, they saw the quantum form reforming. It was surviving in a state that physics shouldn't allow. The lead researcher became so frustrated, he started turning the dials randomly and violently before being dragged away. When they reset the machine, 682 snapped back to its original shape. The Foundation began to get desperate. The tests moved from scientific to insane. They decided to launch it into space. They loaded SCP-682 into a rocket and fired it at the sun. The rocket flew into the star. 682 tore its way out of the ship and fell into the sun's gravity well. It should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, it survived. It drifted in the solar fire for days, and then it began to grow wings. Massive solar sail wings, kilometers wide. It used the solar winds to steer itself. It flew back to Earth. It survived 28 days in the vacuum of space and the heat of a star. When containment teams reached the landing site, the wings were gone, likely burned up on re-entry, but the lizard was waiting. They tried SCP-826, a pair of bookends that make any story placed between them come true. A researcher wrote a story titled "The Generally Nice, Friendly Thing That Can and Will Kill SCP-682 Permanently if it so much as spots that damn lizard." They put 682 in the room. The story activated. 682 was transported into a green pasture to face the friendly thing. 30 minutes later, 682 burst back into reality. It was mangled, missing limbs, and terrified, but alive. The book had changed. The title was now "The Generally Nice, Friendly Thing That Tried to Kill SCP-682 Permanently But Failed." The text inside described an epic battle that destroyed the fictional world, but 682 had won. It had rewritten the narrative of its own death. They tried SCP-662, the summoning bell for Mr. Deeds, a butler who can do almost anything. They asked him if he could destroy SCP-682. Mr. Deeds replied, "I'm terribly sorry, sir. I'm afraid I can't." They asked if he could kill it. Again, he refused. He offered to stab it or feed it explosives, but he politely informed them that it would only be a temporary inconvenience. Even the supernatural help was useless. They tried SCP-3008, the infinite IKEA. They put 682 in a containment tank and drove it into the store with a remote-controlled drone. The signal was lost. They assumed it was gone forever, lost in the endless aisles of Swedish furniture. 24 hours later, the doors opened. 18 instances of the store's staff, the facelings, walked out. They were carrying sealed cardboard boxes stamped with the IKEA logo. They placed the boxes on the ground and left. When the Foundation examined the boxes, they spontaneously ruptured. 682 was inside, chopped into pieces, packaged but still alive. The fragments reassembled themselves and attacked. They even tried SCP-001, the Gate Guardian. This is an angel with a flaming sword that guards the Garden of Eden. They drove 682 toward it. The Guardian struck. Its sword erases things from existence. It hit 682. The lizard was obliterated, mostly. A backup camera saw 682, missing all its limbs, bleeding, crawling out of the wreckage. And it was laughing. It dragged itself toward the angel and yelled, asking if this was meant to be the garden. It shouted that the garden is far west of here. The angel struck it again. 682 spat at it. It shouted, "Die? You command me to die? Oh, wouldn't we all like that? But this is my curse for suggesting the fruit." It survived a strike from God's own gatekeeper. Some attempts were just bizarre. They introduced SCP-507, the Dimension Hopper. He was chained to 682 when he shifted dimensions. He came back days later, alone. A note was pinned to his chest from an alternate universe version of the Foundation. It read, "Dear Universe, 5802 Sigma Blue Romeo. It's your problem now, suckers." Apparently, even the multiverse doesn't want it. They tried SCP-1933, the Bailey's Santa. This entity produces bodily fluids that turn people into Irish cream. They pumped 200 litres of the fluid into the chamber. 682 drank it. It didn't die. It got drunk. It consumed all the fluids, then collapsed, clawing at its face. Then it vomited. It projectile vomited a substance that turned the walls of the containment chamber into Irish cream instantly, causing a massive structural failure and a breach. They tried SCP-2599, the girl who cannot fail any order, but can only complete it imperfectly. They told her to attack SCP-682 until it is 200% dead. She fought the reptile for 42 minutes. She crushed its thorax. She ruptured its eyeballs. She was winning. She grabbed its head to rip it off. And then 682 spoke. It screamed at her to kill it. It mocked her, calling her a sack of organs. The girl froze. The command, "Kill me," was a concrete order. The command, "Attack until 200% dead," was abstract. The new order overrode the old one. But because she must fail every order, she couldn't kill him. She stood there, paralyzed by the paradox, until security removed her. 682 had logic bombed a reality bender. They tried sending it to SCP-1233, the Moon Champion. This entity is a bizarre, spacesuit-wearing humanoid who fights moon monsters. They lured him to 682. The Champion hit the lizard with the force of a nuclear weapon. He threw shipping containers at it. He accelerated to 40,000 kilometers per hour and smashed into 682. The explosion disrupted communications. When the dust cleared, 682 was broken but regenerating. The Moon Champion had been punched into orbit, his visor cracked, flying back toward the moon. They tried the darkest arts. They tried SCP-2935, a reality where everything is dead. When they found the 682 in that universe, it was dead. It proved the lizard can die. But it required the literal death of the entire universe to happen. In all this history of violence, there is one anomaly that stands out. Not because it hurt 682, but because it didn't. SCP-053. She is a young girl. Any human over the age of 3 who touches her, looks at her for too long, or stays in the room with her enters a homicidal rage and tries to kill her. She also regenerates from any injury. The Foundation put her in the cell with 682. They expected the lizard to tear her apart. 682 stared at her. It looked confused. It didn't attack. The little girl hid behind a chair, afraid of the giant monster. 682 lowered itself to the ground and rested its head on the floor. The girl approached him. She touched his head. 682 didn't rage. It exhaled softly. For the rest of the day, the monster that hates all life played with the little girl. She brought him toys. She drew on his armoured carapace with crayons. He let her. He was docile. When the researchers finally entered to retrieve her, 682 instantly attacked them, killing 2 people. But he never hurt the girl. When they took her away, she cried. It was the only time 682 encountered biological life without trying to destroy it. Maybe it recognized something in her, another creature cursed to be hated by everything around it. SCP-682 remains in containment today. It is still in the acid, it is still regenerating, and it is still waiting. The termination log continues to grow. Every day, the Foundation dreams up a new weapon, a new anomaly, a new god to throw at the reptile. And every day, 682 survives. It adapts, it evolves, it is the Foundation's ultimate failure. A reminder that in a universe of anomalies, there are some things you cannot control. You cannot contain them forever, and you certainly cannot kill them. You have to admit, getting thrown into the sun and growing wings to fly back is a level of spite we should all aspire to. I really appreciate you spending time with me to go through these logs. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Until next time.